Meeting of the City of Franklin. Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll?
Mayor Nelson.
Here.
Alderman Holtfer.
Here.
Alderwoman Eichman.
Here.
Alderman Hassan.
Here.
Alderwoman Day.
Here.
Alderman Barber.
Here.
Alderman Craig.
Present. Excellent. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item B, citizen comment period. Any citizen wishing to speak, please come to the podium. State your name and address clearly for the record, and try to keep it to 3 minutes. It is now open.
Leroy Lewandowski, 8030 West Winston Way. I've been here several times in regards to Pleasant View Park. And again, they planted trees, and they planted trees on a 15-degree angle. And when I complained about it, they would put posts, and they're trying to straighten it out with elastic bandages so that you're damaging the tree. Elastic around a tight, put it tightly around a tree growing like that is not correct. If they would have put the trees in with the ball straight and the staff up straight, you wouldn't have that problem. Incidentally, this is the third time I've seen something done with that pickleball stadium or whatever you want to call it. It's been costing us money. I don't know. The last time here yesterday, I think it was, I was there with 2 trucks. They drove over the grass again, start working in there. Keep doing that. I don't understand why we have to put up with that as a citizen if we can't get the job right. And I blame the chief engineer for all this situation. Also, item 3, in regards to South History Street, I thought that's a new street if I look at that carefully. And it runs from, it runs south and it hits the Elm Road. And the Elm Road is really in bad shape. It's got some potholes that are about 6 foot big. And they got 2 of those, and that piece of road has not been improved since the day I come into the city. And that's up to another issue with the engineering department. So I guess it's, when are we going to straighten some of this stuff out, Mr. Mayor? Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to come forward at this time? That's perfect.
Good evening. My name is Dale Kerner, 8630 West Hawthorne Lane. We got this report from the sound study done by the county. I don't know if any of you have read it. I'll read little excerpts, a couple paragraphs. RGS Sound Monitoring Study has documented various activities at the rock, which are clearly capable. As a result of their volume and nature, to annoy, irritate, disrupt quiet enjoyment, and disrupt the sleep of the residents of Franklin neighborhoods adjacent to the rock during both daytime and nighttime hours. Some of the activities have produced noise that is clearly audible from 2 miles away. This has been done by a study. It's not the neighbors saying this, it's a study. The monitoring was restricted by the operator's lack of cooperation with the RSG. He did not let him on site. So again, he's very confrontational. Neighbors have complained that the speakers at Franklin Field have directed sound out of the rock property towards the surrounding residential areas. If anybody stopped by, you've heard it. It is not clear what steps the city or county have taken to ensure that this provision of the development agreement has been complied with. The city of Franklin's practices with regard to noise from the rock has been referred to the general Franklin noise ordinance for determining noise limits. Although, as noted, there are additional ordinances providing that are relevant. There's several things to read here. I'm just going to do a couple things. The report also says, note, humans find unwanted noise in the form of speech or music to be particularly distracting and irritating. Try to sleep at night with your windows open and you hear a baseball game going on, a rock concert. And again, this is not a 3-day weekend. It's an ongoing thing. Tonight, again, the noise is blaring in my house. I rode my car up there and there's hardly anybody in the stands. I know it was a little bit early yet, but I was up there last night and I was up there at 10 to 7. The stands were just about empty. As a result, it is not unusual to further restrict that noise, contain the music or speech by reducing the limits of the noise. Similarly, low frequency sounds such as bass noise travels further and can more readily penetrate into buildings. And that happens a lot when they use the umbrella bar and you hear this bass going boom, ba-boom, ba-boom. There's several more excerpts from here. At this time, this is all I want to say is I'm asking you guys to come out and observe what's going on. I am a neighbor of yours. You guys work for me as a council member. Come out and listen to it. There's no reason we have to put up with this. It's not fair. It's not right. You still send me a tax bill for my quality of life, and where is it? Thank you.
Good evening, council members. Dana Gint, 9011 West Hawthorne Lane. I just want to read a couple excerpts from a report from a planning manager in 2020, page 83. It's important to recognize that the current situation surrounding Franklin Field, and to a lesser extent the Umbrella Bar, is one involving design. Design of the Rock Sports Complex, and particularly Franklin Field, is linked to the current noise issues just as much as of a lack of comprehensive understanding of sound in the area generally. Significant design issues were not addressed at the onset that would have at least reduced the magnitude of the noise problems. That was 2020. That item was, that report was tabled and was supposed to come back in February of 2021. Myself and numerous other people have asked numerous times that that report be placed back on the agenda for discussion. In that report, again, it goes to say, page 26, it should be noted that the sound limit of 79 decibels is significantly higher than that permitted in all other residential districts, which is 50 decibels during the daytime and 45 at night. As the UDO section 15-31107 standards are understood to apply to the receiving district as well as the originating district. This means that technically speaking, a violation of the sound standard is that the district line is more material than one originating in PDD 37. And it was very loud on the way here tonight. I want to point out that in 2014, when this stadium was first proposed, the developer's response regarding noise is that, this is what he wrote, it's 3/31/2014, Common Council meeting, page 53. The developer's response: the public address system proposed for this project is substantially different from what was once standard in outdoor public assemblies, such as ballparks, stadiums, etc. In the past, public address systems consist of a point source, a cluster of speakers mounted on a pole in the outfield. This system produced significant noise pollution because of the amplified sound was being projected as a multi-directional process signal. The public address system proposed for this project utilizes technology to reduce significantly, if not eliminate, audible dB or noise pollution that may disturb adjacent property owners. The following design guidelines ensure that we accomplish this goal of minimal minimal decibel levels. Number 2, all speakers incorporated in our design are individually amplified and distributed throughout the ballpark. Our speaker cabinets, please note this, our speaker cabinets are aimed directly into the crowd and designed to give the loudspeaker closer to the listener's ear. In doing so, we don't have to drive the loudspeaker as much as a point source system would. In the RSG sound study that Milwaukee County commissioned, it's clearly stated that there's 3 speakers pointed out from the stadium at residential districts. The PDD itself indicates that the district intent is that the facility shall employ superior lighting and sound systems as to minimize potential adverse impacts on adjacent properties. Okay, so this has been going on since 2014, you guys, and it's just egregious that hundreds of people have come to meetings. You get hundreds of complaints a year to the county and to the city about the noise problem. Mayor Nelson came to our neighborhood. There's actually some neighbors here that were, when we met with Mayor Nelson on September 14th, 2022, that, and he said it was totally unacceptable. There was a game going on. There was 12 neighbors there, and we couldn't even have a conversation. There was elected officials there and 12 neighbors. Mayor Nelson said that the noise level was unacceptable. So I'd like to know what's going to be done. I'd like to submit at least the copy of the, oh, and the other thing is that on that 2020 report, the developer agreed to pay for the sound study in 2020 and also agreed to work with collaboration with the sound engineer, city officials, and neighbors to implement adjustments that can balance the needs of the business and the concerns for reducing noise. So I find that interesting that it's mentioned 18 times in the county sound study that he did not allow permission to get on the property to make any kind of measurements. And there's also part of the sound study is that they missed probably at least 5 ordinance related to public nuisance. 183-40 talks about nuisances prohibited. So I could read that. Noise disturbances prohibited. No person shall make, continue, or cause to permit an operation of any device on land owned, used, or rented by such a person, including but not limited to musical instruments, sound amplifiers, or similar device which produces or amplifies sound in such a manner as to create a noise disturbance across a residential property boundary. In such a manner to create a noise disturbance of 50 feet from a device. B, loudspeakers address systems using or operating or permitting the operation of any loudspeaker, public address system, or similar device such that therefrom creates a noise disturbance. So I don't even know how many times I have to come up and read the same paragraphs over and over to this council. But obviously something needs to be done. So I'd appreciate thinking about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to come and speak at this time? Seeing no one else, I'll close citizen comment period. Moving on, item C, approval of the minutes, regular common council meeting of July 5th, 2023. Holfer and Barber, any discussion? Seeing none, all is in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Under item D, hearings, there are none. Under item E, organizational business, there is none. Under F, letters and petitions, that's right, there is none. G1, there's an addendum here. A resolution to award change order number 1 for the West Minnesota Avenue and South 50th Street water main extension to Wilcom Excavating and Grading, Inc. Mr. City Engineer.
In our rush to get things on your council packet this week, we made some assumptions in putting together the final change order. Having said that, staff was going through and looking at some things. We actually talked them down. So the final change order is going to be 27.9. It went from that to 3,224. So it's a significant decrease. So the situation is we were being double charged on some items that didn't show up very, very clearly in the final payments.
Mr. City Attorney.
What's the amount changed to?
$3,224.04.
Okay, so it's lower.
Much lower, yes.
Okay, thank you. Thought I heard 300,000, so.
No.
I'm glad you didn't.
And I was gonna say, can't act on it.
Any further discussion? Mr. Barber?
To approve.
We have a first
Second.
and we have a second, Holfer and Day. See no further discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item G2, resolution to issue change order number 2 for the construction of South 60th Street sanitary lift station replacement, 10100 South 60th Street, to J.H. Hassinger, Inc., for an additional $80,884. Mr. City Engineer.
This was actually, as we discussed last meeting, with the agreement with Alice Roller. So if you weren't here or don't recall, Alice Roller is committed to reimburse the city for this cost.
Could you say that one more time, a little louder?
Alice Roller has agreed to reimburse the city for this cost.
Thank you. Any discussion? Move to approve. We have Alderwoman Day and Alderman Barber. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Item 3, a resolution to award change order number 5 to Buten Peterson Construction Company, Inc., for the Franklin Corporate Park, South Hickory Street improvements for $22,624. Mr. City Engineer.
So again, another construction project that we're closing up on. There's a few little things, but for the most part, the biggest part of this, at least 15,000, I believe, was to pay for a wall. If you drive along, you'll see several cells that we're using for our stormwater basins, and there was some moisture in the embankment that was causing the ground to slough off. So we did an evaluation. We looked at putting more blocks in, like the rest of it. That was kind of expensive, and we're using more of a natural fabric kind of situation that'll hold itself in, and we think it's a good solution for the cost.
Excellent. Any further discussion? Do a motion?
Second.
Busan and Eichen. See no further discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. Item 4. An ordinance to amend ordinance number 2022-2521, an ordinance adopting the 2023 annual budget for the Street Improvement Fund to provide carry forward appropriations from 2022 to 2023 of unused funds for the South 50th Street and West Minnesota Avenue project in the amount of $61,102.25.
So moved.
Second.
This will be a roll call vote. We've got a first and a second. When was the second? Barbara, yeah. Roll call vote. Got your little list? You committed them yet?
Alderman Holfer.
Aye.
Alderwoman Eichman.
Aye.
Alderman Hassan.
Aye.
Alderwoman Day.
Aye.
Alderman Barber.
Aye.
Alderman Craig.
Aye.
6 ayes, no nos. Motion carries. Very good. Item G5, a resolution for authorization to We Energies for work order to install a streetlight at South 50th Street and West Minnesota Avenue. Mr. City Engineer, you got a few insights?
Yeah, so this was tabled at the last meeting. If you recall, almost the last minute, a nearby resident asked that we not put a street light up. Didn't really have a chance to think through the ramifications of that. So in your, I put some description in the council action this time that talked about new subdivisions that are required at every intersections. I actually had GIS run a map, and you'll see at your place. There are 8 other intersections, best we can tell, that do not have a street light at the intersection, so it's a very rare situation with all the intersections we have in the city. And you'll see in the council action, the fire chief responded that they do encourage lights because there's a fire hydrant right there, and they would need that in case of emergency. After I turned the council action, the police chief also responded that their preference is that there be a light. In addition, my water utility would prefer that there be a light, because we have to maintain that. This is an intersection where there's a stop sign. Granted, stop signs have a reflectivity issue, but you want to make sure people see those. Plus, specifically this intersection, we actually installed a guardrail because there was concern that someone may not see the intersection very well and crash into a house that's fairly close, just the way the road lines up with the house. So given all those issues, I would still recommend that we put a light there. The resident who requested that we not put the light up called me this afternoon about 4:30, and I explained my reasons, and he says, you know what, he's okay with that. So he said he couldn't be here tonight, but he wanted to let you know that he's okay if we put the light up. So with all those things, I would recommend we put the light up.
Mr. Holfer.
We put a shield to maybe block some from his view, or?
So his house is on the north side of this T-leg intersection. So I don't know if we could shield it, not,
Okay.
yeah.
But given your points, they make perfect sense. It's a huge safety thing, so I'm glad that's makes sense and it's going to move forward, hopefully. So we're looking for a motion to
So
approve.
moved.
Hofer and Eichmann. Any further discussion?
Aye.
Wow, you're on it tonight. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Item G6, an ordinance to amend ordinance 2022-2521, an ordinance adopting the 2023 annual budget for the capital operating fund to transfer $7,000 in expenditures from the engineering department personnel services salary and benefits accounts to the clerk's personal services salary and benefits accounts.
So moved.
Second.
This is a roll call. We've got a first and a second, and a roll call vote is required.
Alderman,
Hold on. Alderman Holfer, go ahead.
sorry.
Floor.
So this is this the one that's, so that we have somebody that's going to be doing the open records request? So my question is, because we're talking about lowest possible salary that could do it, what happens in the case where perhaps the city attorney has to get involved to review client attorney privilege, things like that? What happens to the cost under those situations?
Well, are you looking for the discussion on that item as it comes up? Was it 12 or 13, or is this just right now for this move?
Yeah, we can discuss it.
Yes, well, I would ask if you wouldn't have a problem with that.
That's fine.
Okay, so we got a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries.
We have to do a
Roll call. Sorry, roll call vote again. Holfer threw me off.
Alderman Craig.
Aye.
Alderman Barber.
Aye.
Alderwoman Day.
Aye.
Alderman Hassan.
Aye.
Alderwoman Eichmann.
Aye.
Alderman Hopfer.
Aye.
6 ayes, no noes, motion carries. G7. An ordinance to amend ordinance 2022-2521, an ordinance adopting the 2023 annual budgets for the capital outlay, water, sewer, and capital improvement to provide carry forward appropriations from 2022 for specifically identified projects in the amount of $1,662,000. Roll call vote required. Any further discussion on this?
So moved.
Second.
First and a second, Barber and Holford. See no further discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Excuse me.
Alderman Hope.
Wait,
Alderman
wait, wait, wait.
Hopfer.
Aye.
Alderwoman Eichmann.
Aye.
Alderman Hassan.
Aye.
Alderwoman Day.
Aye.
Alderman Barber.
Aye.
And Alderman Craig.
Aye.
6 ayes, no noes, motion carries. G8, authorization to apply for the Energy Efficiency and Conservation Block Grant for $76,280 to purchase LED street lights.
So moved.
Second.
We've got Craig and Eichmann, and we've got some discussion. Alderwoman Day.
I just have one question, because I know sometimes grants are a little finicky. I know, Glenn, you mentioned here that you're looking to use it for LED streetlights, and you believe that they are approved. If we apply for this and they're not approved, do you have any other use for the money, or is there any penalty if we don't?
So we looked at this a little bit last year, and one of the things you can use these for charging stations, and it doesn't really fit because of Wisconsin state statutes. My understanding is most other communities are using this for LED, but you don't know until you do the application and they accept it.
Okay, great, thank you.
Mr. Rolfer.
Just a quick question. Do you have any idea of how many we may be able to get out of this? roughly?
I don't know, because I would like to purchase poles too if I can. So we're going to try to, I don't know, we're going to try to max out the amount.
But I meant like, we're going to get,
So it's more than just bulbs, you know, you buy the heads. And I believe those, I want to say they're like $800 a piece. So, you know, you 80, 90 of them, something in that
and
range.
that covers labor for us too then, or no?
No.
Just the material?
I don't think so. And again, once we dig into it, we'll find out. And if we can recoup some labor, maybe we can do that too. But we want to try to buy as many bulbs as we can, fixtures.
Do we have then a regular program aside from this for those eventual replacements?
We've been in the process, yeah, so we have, I want to say it's roughly 30,000 a year that we have for streetlight materials. So probably 2/3 of that is into the actual poles, because we have a lot of knockdowns we have to replace. And then at the end of the year, we just close out the account by buying heads. And so as we can replace the HPS fixtures with LED, we're gradually working on those. But that's how we fund it now. We wait, see how much we have left in the budget, then we just buy it with all LEDs, and we use our staff to, as a filler chore to go fix those.
And then last question, I promise. Do you have a priority? Are you doing residential, commercial first, or?
Well, so keep in mind that most of the ones in residentials we don't own. Those are We Energies. Like the Minnesota issue that we talked about tonight, that's going to be a We Energies light. So we're replacing, obviously we own all of them in the business industrial park. We own the ones along 27th Street in Rawson, and I don't know, I don't recall which ones we've replaced, which one we haven't. So
Okay.
I can get that for you, but I don't.
No,
have it offhand.
that's fine, thank you.
Any further discussion? Okay, we've got a first and a second. Seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. Item G9, a resolution to award change order number 1 to All Ways Contractors, Inc. for Pleasant View Park improvements in the amount of $7,482.12. Mr. Morrow.
So as discussed, there's been a lot of activity in the pickleball courts. So for those of you that don't recall the conversation, something really weird happened. I'll just call it weird. We have a tennis court expert, said he's been working tennis courts since '68, and this has never happened before. There was a large rain event that happened a few days before they put the coating down, so there was some trapped water down in the asphalt. So in the morning when the sun came up, basically it looked like I call it a teenager's pimple face. All these pimples would rise in the asphalt. So there was a good bonding between the actual coating and the asphalt, but this vapor pressure was somehow happening in the asphalt itself, and it was just crazy. So contractors never run into this before, and everyone we've talked to, totally weird situation. We've never seen this happen before. So the contractor, at his expense, went in, tore everything out, and basically replaced it again at his expense. So this is, again, finishing up the final quantities. I highlighted the differences, and for the most part, it was difference in quantities as far as topsoil and seeding, those kinds of things. That's the primary difference for this final calculations. We just, once the construction started happening, we had them grade out a little further to make it feather in with the existing grade, that the engineer maybe didn't quite identify the grades very well, and so we had to go a little bit further in some locations to make it all feather out nice.
Thank you. Any further discussion? I've got just a question, since it was brought up earlier. The trees that were at that
So
issue earlier discussed, hold on, let me ask you this
we
first.
do have a certified arborist as our forester, and actually we have three or four arborists on staff. So, but our forester went out and looked at them. He identified 3 that maybe, but he wound up staking 5 of them. So again, I would tell you that they were staked, if not staked by our arborist, under the supervision of an arborist. So I appreciate Mr. Lewandowski's comments, but I would suggest to you that our staff staked them appropriately.
Well, that was my point, was that an arborist was out there, and an arborist was the one that put those supports on the trees. And an arborist isn't going to put supports on the trees that are going to kill them or damage them or injure them, as you say.
And I should also mention, we do anticipate there's 1 tree I'm going to ask the contractor to come out and replace.
Thank you. So 1 will be replaced.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Do we have first and second? Need a motion?
Motion to approve?
Second.
Holfer and Hussein. See no further discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Item G10, a resolution to issue contract change order number 1 to Payne and Dolan, Inc. for the 2023 local street improvement program in the amount of $10,153. Mr. City Engineer?
I believe this is primarily some issues where we had some very defective soils underneath the asphalt.
Say that again?
Very defective soils, and it wasn't supported, so we had to do some undercutting.
Okay, so you had defective soils, got it.
So move.
Second.
We've got Barber and Holfer. See no further discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries to approve. G11, a resolution to amend resolution number 2023-7990 to correct same and to approve an additional partial property tax rescission and refund for 2022 for parcel number 934-0023-000 in accordance therewith. This is in District 1. Move to approve.
Second.
We got Holfer and Eichmann. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. G12, in ordinance to amend the municipal code 80-13A to increase the number of dogs, tiny horses, or cats permitted to be kept on a person's premises from 2 to 3, and municipal code 80-16, providing for animal fancier permits to increase the number of dogs, tiny horses, or cats from not less than 3, nor more than 4, to not less than 4, and not more than 5.
Motion to move.
So we have a little discussion first, if you wouldn't mind, before the motion. Or some clarification. Sure. So a couple of you have asked me where this had come from. Back when I was at D6, we've got large open areas, and families did approach me wondering, how can we legally have 3 dogs? This was all about dogs. It was all about dogs. And they had, families with 2, 3, 4 kids. They wanted each child to have their own dog. And it was part of a whole bigger thing. So as this kind of morphed into how can we change this to allow citizens that are responsible, that wish to do things the right way, that wish to do things by ordinance, how can we provide them that avenue and those tools? So that way is to do this. And unfortunately, or fortunately, it also encompasses some other things, but that was how this started. Mr. Barber.
What is tiny horses?
I don't know about the tiny horse part. I can't, maybe Mr. City Attorney could speak on that, as he's a original Rough Rider with Teddy Roosevelt.
My thought is, I don't have any experience with regulation of animals, and when I rewrote this and researched it, I included basically all staff who are ever involved in that. My thought with regard to current code that's been there for a long, long time, dogs, tiny horses, cats, you're increasing it by 1. And it's been there for a long time. So I basically thought on a practical real world, and it's not that big of a concern. And I also cited from the Milwaukee area domestic animal control site, all the other municipalities and numbers of dogs and cats, and or rabbits, and I believe I saw tiny horses in there somewhere also. So,
Well, thank you, Counselor. Great job. Alderman, you still have the floor. You good?
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Barber.
Do any of these communities have any qualifiers as to the size of the lot or size of the home or anything like that, given if there's a large, it's like with the pole barn situation that we had a couple of years ago, the size of the lot said you could have a bigger pole barn, and so I'm just wondering if there's any communities that have any of those kind of thoughts in their ordinances.
For or do you want
I do not know because I did not research community by community in the Milwaukee metropolitan area or Milwaukee County.
but the numbers are there, which I thought was great.
I can speak to that.
I know. Goodman? Alderman Day?
I can speak to Alderman Barber's question for several of the municipalities. Generally speaking, no, there isn't usually requirements on the size of the home or the property for the animals. It's just the maximum that is there. I do know for our animal fancier permits, there are some parameters for the size of the property to be able to do the animal fancier piece. My concern, obviously, as a public health professional for 12 years and regulating animal bites that entire time, animals will be animals. The more animals you put in a confined space, you're asking for potentially an increase in animal bites, which does put a burden on the health department and the police department to follow up on those. So I will cautiously go along with this, but under the auspice that if we do see an uptick, I may bring this back to revisit for potentially putting it back to the 2.
Mr. City Attorney?
I did circulate this with and communicated with the health department first, and I included whenever the draft was done, probably a week ago, with the police department and the fire department as well as the health department and the clerk's office.
Thank you. Alderman Eichen.
For clarification reasons, and for those listening at home, how would we per se, if there is any issues or concerns, put it back? I mean, we've been removing animals out of families' homes, or what would you suggest?
This is going down a really
Yeah,
wild path. Alderman Day?
Yeah, no,
No.
I would like to revisit potentially beefing up the ordinance to have a little bit more regulation to it, not necessarily taking animals away, but maybe regulations on size of home or something along those lines for animals.
And I just want to, go ahead, ma'am.
I still have the floor. Out of all kindness, I wanted to, well, I hadn't, I just wanted to state so many residences that we know. I mean, I can think of numerous people off the top of my head that currently already have more than 2 animals.
Myself included. I mean, not myself, but I mean,
Really?
not myself, but I once, worked for
yield.
the health department. I know many of the people that I know in Franklin and homes that I visited had more. Right, I understand.
Thank you.
You still have the floor.
I did say I was going to yield this time. Thank you.
So you are yielding
Yes.
officially? Can't hear you. Okay, thank
Said
you.
it quietly. Thank you.
One thing I'd like to add to your point, Alderwoman, is what do you do? Now, if you have excessive bites, excessive whatever, I mean, there's a protocol that's set forth. If you got a dog bite and somebody's reported, there's protocols with where you've got to show your vaccinations. Sometimes they've got to be kept in quarantine. There's a whole process. So it's not like if this thing gets out of hand, I mean, there's, unfortunately, animals do get ordered for euthanization. I mean, I've been through it. I do it. Unfortunately, there's a whole, so it's not like there's an uptick in bites. What are we all going to do? There is processes in place that protects our community. Looking for a motion.
I made the motion.
We have a first, we have a second. I didn't hear.
I
Sorry.
second.
Okay, we have a first and a second. See no further discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. G13. An ordinance to amend 72-4, F as in Frank, sub 5 of the municipal code pertaining to the cost of locating public records upon a request for same. So I'd like to start the conversation, then turn it over to Madam Clerk and Madam Director of Administration for their comments. So one of the things that we've been experiencing, and this is not anything new, but I think there's been quite an increase in uptick and the amount of open records requests that are put in and the time it takes and it's all consuming for staff that have to, put forth a lot of labor, effort, research nonstop to fulfill these requests. And that's all well and good, but as a city, we're, and I'm not gonna go into too much more in the soapbox, I'll let Madam Clerk discuss this, but the amount of time spent is just crazy that we're not getting a lot of other things done. And we have to do something to offset the costs, to justify the time. So that's how this started, how this came about. This was a big push on my end, seeing what that whole clerk's office is dealing with every day, the amount of open records requests coming in that aren't just a real simple one. These are that take a lot of time and research every single day. It's overwhelming, to say the least. And I would like to turn this over to Madam Clerk.
I don't know what else to add to that, but that is very true. They don't stop, they keep coming, and I do have staff now that is willing to assist with that and does have some background in the police area, so I think it would be a good addition to have her work on those. Again, she's the lowest paid individual in the office, so she would be handling those. I know you had questions about if we had the attorney looking into issues or somebody else that one of the staff members couldn't do, then we can actually charge at that higher wage or rate, as long as the statute states that the lowest paid person that can answer the request. So if my staff couldn't answer that and it had to go to the engineering department or legal, we would be able to charge at that as well.
I just want to make sure we weren't locked into the lowest.
Yeah.
Mr. City Attorney.
I disagree. What the statutes and your current code provides is with regard to copy, or statutes also with regard to electronic devices being delivered, and charges for locating record. Locating is looking for a record. It's not researching whether or not it's privileged and confidential or not subject to release for any purpose under the open records law. It's the same as it clearly states, redaction cannot charge for that too, and that's right in the realm of researching as to what's confidential and does not have to be released, and the opposite there too. So no, there's no extra charges for that. And with regard to an example for locating a record costs, everyone in general is charged at that lowest employee hourly rate, unless what's needed in the search is something of a higher requirement by an individual with more experience and intelligence on something specific that's required to find that record. And the one example that came to me as a thought would be the IT staff, because sometimes it's not possible for clerk's office staff or other staff to locate certain records, or it might take days to go through this electronic file, that electronic file, 50, 70 of them, whereas IT personnel might be able to do that in 1 or 2 searches. So that would be a different fee.
Which is what I was alluding to, that if it went to a different area, that the lowest paid person in that area is more than the lowest paid in my area.
For locating.
Correct.
That's just looking, it's not researching, et cetera, redaction type of work in relation to responding to open records requests.
I appreciate that. I understand the distinction. And just to reiterate, this is not a new phenomenon that's going on for years.
Correct. Madam Director of Administration. Oh, it was, there you go.
I agree. I agree with the mayor and with the city clerk. I think that this is necessary, that we have, that we start enforcing what has existed and also include the locating fee when applicable.
Thank you, Mr. Barber and Ms. Day.
I don't know how much thought has gone into what is the actual cost on average of getting a record out and then doing something backwards or going backwards to say, this is a set fee. I don't know how other communities set fees for this as well. How do they determine what they charge for the records? Those are kind of things that, what is our actual cost involved? And then do we want to cover that as a per fee basis, or how are we going to? It seems like it's very complicated now for how you're going to have to do this.
There's no more complication to it. It would just be charging for the time that we aren't currently charging for. So I can tell you that my time I spend on these is not being accounted for at all, which is some weeks 95% of what I do in a week.
So now your time would be the lowest person that you're going to be charging?
In my office,
In your
yes.
office, okay. So you would be compensated for you doing the location. What about Jesse's redaction and all those other kind of?
Redactions you cannot charge for.
Okay. Does that take a lot of time?
It can in certain requests.
So
Not every
that
request
could
requires
be,
it.
that could be an add-on to a fee somehow.
You can't charge for redaction.
No, it can't, okay. Okay. So I'm just wondering, I'm just trying to minimize the amount of work you have to do now and make sure that the costs that we are able to recover are being fully recovered, because that might be another half-time person for you.
And currently what we're recovering are costs of copies at 15 cents a page.
Okay.
Good. Mr. City Attorney, then Alderman.
And that 15 cents a page is what it costs for a copy from the copier company. And that's why it's being charged that versus any smaller amount.
Alderwoman?
Yeah, just a quick question. The $50 that we cite in here as part of the new ordinance how did we get to that amount? Is that something that's standard, municipality to municipality, or how did we get to that amount? I just want to make sure that we have the correct amount in here that's going to, serve the purpose of what we need.
Madam Clerk? No?
It's from the statute.
Okay, any further discussion? We have a motion.
So move.
Second.
Barber and Day. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Why don't we do this, let's just go right into 14, then we'll come back for the other two, which seemed to work pretty good last time. So, looking for a motion to enter closed session pursuant to Wisconsin State Statute 1985, 1 sub E, for market competition and bargaining reasons to deliberate and consider terms relating to potential commercial, industrial manufacturing, developments, and proposals, and the investing in public funds and governmental actions in relation thereto, and to affect such developments, including terms and provisions of potential development agreements. 4, including but not limited to the properties at the northeast corner of South 76th Street and West Ryan Road, and to re-enter open session at the same place thereafter to act on such matters discussed therein as it deems appropriate.
Motion.
So we have,
second.
first we have,
Craig?
Craig and Eichmann. Roll call?
Alderman Craig?
Aye.
Alderman Barber?
Aye.
Alderwoman Day?
Aye.
Alderman Hassan?
Aye.
Alderwoman Eichmann?
Aye.
Alderman Hopfer?
Aye.
6 ayes, no noes. Motion carries. We are now heading into closed session. is Alderman Craig. See no further discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Going back to regular agenda. Let's see here. Item H. Licenses. Minute miscellaneous licenses for today, item H. Who's doing this? Mr. Craig.
Yes, we have 3 pages worth of license applications that we saw this evening. Working our way backwards, all applicants on page 3 and page 2 are all approved. And on page 1, Mr. So needs to correct his application in order to be approved. And Kenneth Lux is still held because circumstances prevented him from being able to appear for the committee. All other items are approved.
Second.
So we've got a first, seconded by Alderman Barber. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries.
Yay.
We are up to item I, as an item vouchers and payroll approval. Motion approving the following city vouchers with an ending date of July 13th, 2023, in the amount of $2,023,75. Payroll dated July 14th, 2023, in the amount of $465,622.05. And payments of the various payroll deductions in the amount of $245,505.62, plus city matching payments. And estimated payroll dated July 28th, 2023, in the amount of $660,000, and payments of the various payroll deductions in the amount of $650,000 plus city matching payments.
Move to approve.
Second.
Hofer and Hussein. Roll call, please.
Discussion.
Discussion, Mr. Barber.
Just one very quick question. In the sequence of the checks, there's checks that are missing. Like you'll have the number sequence going down with the first 10 that are sequential, and then maybe there's 2 checks missing. Why aren't they all accounted for in a sequence? It's just one of those things that jumped out at me today. I'd like to see that in the report, that yes, it was, because everything should be identified and accounted for.
That's a great point, Alderman.
And then the other quick point, just to, I don't know if a lot of this, if the early release seems to be very redundant with the blue pages. Do we need all this documentation, or can it all be done and indicated on one page? Because the same checks that show up here on the early release section are the same checks that are in the blue section. So just procedurally, do we need all that paper, or can it all?
We'll find out if we can streamline that, and we'll discuss it.
I don't need an answer. It's just a discussion, just a curiosity point that I have, so.
Very good. We have a first and a second. We have a roll call, please.
Alderman Hopfer.
Aye.
Alderwoman Eichman.
Aye.
Alderman Hassan.
Aye.
Alderwoman Day.
Aye.
Alderman Barber.
Aye.
Alderman Craig.
Aye.
6 ayes, no, motion carries. Motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Eichman and Craig, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None? We're adjourned.
Yay.